Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give everyone a couple minutes to hop on. But while we're waiting, would love for anyone that's joined to throw in the chat where you're zooming out of. Karin and I are both in Seattle. So
And it's sunny today.
it is. Shocker. Well,
Yeah.
we'll have a couple more weeks before
Yeah.
it goes
Dark gray.
bad.
Toronto. That's far.
Seattle.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. I'm like counting down the days until it's just dark and gloomy every day.
I know. Yeah.
Ooh, South Africa, Detroit.
Johannesburg. Whoa. Very cool. Atlanta.
Would love to also hear for anyone if you have any specific like favorite restaurant in the area you're in. I love sharing that in chats. Karin, do you have one that you love in Seattle that you always recommend?
Gosh, that I love in Seattle. Hmm. I live a little bit north of Seattle, so my restaurants tend to be a little bit up north, but I I live up in Bothell, so Mill Creek is kind of close to me, and so I like to go to like Tablas. It's like shared plates, Mediterranean style.
I
Love that.
love shared plates.
What about you?
Yeah, I realized as I asked that question, I don't really have
Yeah.
one. Um, Actually, there's a place in Ballard, um, called the Ivy, and I love like their appetizers, and they also have a really good happy hour.
In Ballard, you said?
Mhm.
My friend is the one of the owners there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, tell them that I love it there.
I will. I will.
But yeah, we have everyone like one more minute to hop in, but super excited to be here with Karin today and talk about how recruiters can utilize Read. This is Karin's first webinar, right? It's
It is. It is. So
gonna be a fun time.
be gentle.
It's gonna be fun. Okay, well, I think we could probably get started. So once again, just thank you everyone for joining. We're really excited doing this Read webinar series, Level Up with Read, and I'm super excited to have Karin with me to talk about how recruiters can utilize Read. So yeah, just quick intro. My name is Megan. I am on the sales team here at Read. So yeah, Karin, you want to give yourself a
Yeah.
nice little intro, some background into you?
So I'm Karin, and I am one of two recruiters here at Reed, and we've grown just a ton since I've been here, almost a year. And I am sort of a serial startup recruiter. This is, I think, my sixth startup. So I love the chaos. And so partnering what I do with a company like Reed has been just like a dream because it makes my job so much easier. So happy to sort of share all of those tips and tricks with everyone today.
I love that. Also, at any time, feel free to throw some questions in the chat. We are going to have like a Q&A section at the end. We also have one of our awesome customer success reps on the call who will be able to reply to some comments and questions in the chat if needed. But throw those questions in the chat if you have them, and we'll make sure to get to them at the end as well. But yeah, to start, Karin, I would just love to know, like, in your first initial conversations with candidates, like how are you utilizing Read?
Yeah. So, the way that I utilize Read probably the most, and the way that it's the most rich and helpful for me is to just know that there will always be a post-meeting recap. So it's an automatic transcription of the recruiting call. So it will give me sort of a summarization, but also action items, and it makes it so that I can have like a very focused conversation without distraction. So I'm not taking notes and I'm not worried that if I'm, having the conversation and I didn't write it down, how am I ever going to remember it? So It's pretty easy to just know that I've got all of that sort of in my back pocket that I can go back to later. And it kind of makes sure that like nothing really is missed because I'm able to just have that fluid conversation as opposed to sort of like checking off some boxes throughout my process.
Awesome. And for anyone who hasn't seen Read before, just here's an example of what Karin's talking about for what a meeting report looks like. So this is kind of the post-meeting recap. She gets a summary of the whole conversation, as well as a full transcript. So it's super helpful. I can definitely see how you can use it on a recruiting side.
Yeah.
How, like you mentioned, there's one other recruiter on the team, Michael. How do you all stay aligned across like multiple interviews as well as just with the Read team in whole since we have so many people that interview throughout the process?
Yeah. So I think that's where sort of like that free agent kind of comes into play. It's able to sort of like reference any information and that's sort of like scattered, right? Like everything feels like it's maybe mentioned in Slack or Teams, and then something happens in an email and potentially in a meeting. And so if we're able to sort of like summarize that and see it all in one place, it puts it into one easy location. I can also then go and quickly see what's going on with my counterparts' roles in the event that he's out. I can easily pick things up and kind of fill in the gaps essentially without him, which makes things move much quicker. I think everybody is pretty aware and has been affected by maybe someone going out on like a vacation or time off, and that just feels like it stops things. So if I can continue to get that information, even if like Michael, my coworker, isn't working that week. So it's great.
Awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the same on the sales side, so I totally get how you could use that in recruiting. It's so helpful to still have the answers available when the person's not available,
Yeah,
right?
because our job doesn't stop. It has to keep
Yeah.
going. So it's very helpful in that way.
Exactly. And like while you're like throughout the candidate's interview process, like giving feedback and things like that, how do you utilize Read in that instance?
Yeah. So I think the thing that comes up the most in not necessarily a pain point, but a sticking point and can slow things down in a recruiting workflow is gathering that feedback from your interviewers. And, I think like everyone is super, super busy. Interviewing is usually not your first, part of your job. And so if you can quickly, and this is what usually happens, is once a interviewer on my team, let's say they're an engineer, once they've complete an interview without Read, you would probably, what usually happens, wait the whole day and continue on with your job. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, I was supposed to get interview feedback to Karin. And so what you can do, and I tell the team this, they all kind of have these prompts from me beforehand. I can say, please write interview feedback for, and then the candidate name using, and then I can give the job description. I usually just grab the link from our careers page and say, and any other information that we know about the candidate and this role, and please write out interview feedback. And it's just going to write the interview feedback for them, which by far has been the biggest lifesaver to move things in in a faster pace, which is really critical in recruiting. People find a new role really quickly, so we have to be moving very quickly as well.
That is also a great reminder, and I'm smiling because I have interview feedback that I need to pop into Read after this to submit to you.
See, so yeah, use Search Copilot.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, what we're talking about here is our Search Copilot tool, and you're able to really search across all of your data sources that you have integrated with Read. So it's super helpful. Um, as a recruiter, what would you say are like your top prompts that you're putting into Search Copilot? Like as you can see on this side, we have our recent searches. Like what are your most recent searches that you're using Search Copilot for?
Hmm. Good question. I think one of the things that I use Search Copilot the most is using Search Copilot to create job descriptions. And so oftentimes what I'll do is I've created a job description template. So I can just drop that into Search Copilot, and any notes that I have from like an intake meeting, I can go directly into a read report after an intake meeting and quite literally say, please create a job description using this intake meeting, and here's this template. It will create the entire job description for me. And then what's helpful is to then take that job description and ask Search Copilot to give you some basic interview questions, and you can give that to your team. I think a lot of the time there's a lot of preparation that goes into interviews, and we just need to be cognizant that the other people, the interviewers, aren't likely to have that same amount of time. So the more that we can give them up front, especially if it's streamlined, and we know these questions are going to get us to this specific candidate, and everyone sort of on that interview panel is sort of following these interview questions so that we're getting exactly what we need from the interviews. It helps with those candidate evaluations and then gives the hiring team a pretty clear idea of what our decision should be on the candidate.
Awesome. I would like to point out you do a great job of giving prompts and questions beforehand because I don't feel like I have to put too much work in before
Yeah,
any interviews I have.
that's what I want to hear. Because, yeah, I think, like, especially when we are here, and I think everybody that is in the recruiting space, things move really, really quickly. And we just have a ton of jobs, and we're hiring a ton here at Reed. And so we realize that someone going into an interview to maybe interview someone on their team, they're not, they maybe haven't spent some time to write those questions, and Search Copilot can really easily do that even for the interviewer. If I haven't done that for them, obviously I recommend it to my team. Quickly just come up with some interview questions. You can just take the candidate's profile and you could say like, help me understand, a little bit more about this candidate, and it's going to pull out some of those topics.
Definitely, definitely. And throughout, like, obviously, Search Copilot is just a huge source. Like, I spend most of my time in Read and Search Copilot just because it is so helpful. If we go back into like the reports, is there any other aspect that you're using a lot when you're analyzing these interviews afterwards, like any of our analytics or anything like that?
Yeah. So and maybe you can show this kind of at the same time here, but in the Read report, there is some sort of like coaching and communication analytics that Read provides. And so we've given an engagement score, we've given some sentiment. So I can even ask Search Copilot, of these, you know, we'll just take software engineer, we'll just take of these software engineer candidates, who maybe showed the most sentiment or who was the most engaged in these interviews, because I think we all are looking for someone who is genuinely interested in the work that they're doing and genuinely wants to be a part of the team. And if we can figure out the way, and we've done that, figure out the way to really see whether or not they're actively engaged in the interview, if they're kind of like at any point during the conversation, if I start talking about compensation and I can see that they're maybe looking away, I can understand, okay, maybe I need to circle back to this compensation conversation. It looked like potentially there needed to be an additional conversation there. And so it's really helpful because it gives you an idea of sort of like speech rate, engagement, inclusivity. You can look at specific words used or not used. And so that I think is really, really helpful because it's not something that I've ever seen done as like a tool for recruiting. And it is such a huge part of the job, right? We want to find the right people for the role so that we hopefully have them stay here for a really long time.
Exactly. It's funny like how similar like you use Read as a recruiter to like me as
Really?
a sales representative because the way you're talking about like the sentiment engagement chart, like I'm using it in almost the same way. Maybe not for compensation, but when I'm talking pricing with someone, I will go back and look and see, okay, was this perceived well on their end or not. So it's super helpful in so many different aspects. I would
Yeah.
love just anyone who's on here as well, if you've used Read before or if you haven't, to throw in like, how would you use this in your day to day right now? Would love to get some ideas from everybody. But yeah, super helpful there. Um,
One other thing I was going to even jump into, Megan, you just kind of prompted me to talk about how so when we had our new recruiter join, it was important for me to figure out the ways that I could pull out some like sample interviews, some sample intake meetings, and the way that I can easily create sort of like an onboarding. And I did this for him just 2 months ago, created this onboarding sort of week for him that actually felt very useful and I think very relevant. I was able to give him like, here's actual interviews from candidates that I had even like a week before he joined, and like some sample intake meetings so he could sort of see, oh, this is how we typically do those intake meetings. Here's what we cover. And that goes for debriefs as well. He could see sort of how I typically ran those debrief meetings. And so that intrinsic knowledge, like, is really hard to share. And that also sort of goes if someone were to leave, right? That knowledge typically goes with them. But if we're able to have that information still here so that we can access it and use it moving forward, that's when it really makes this all of the information that Reed captures so valuable. Because it's not just like in the conversations that we're having today, but like how do we use it in the future to, make our lives easier?
Definitely. And Sierra left a great comment. Um, that they would want a tool that like takes notes during the interview so you can really focus on the conversation rather than having to take notes. I would love to hear about like in your prior roles,
Oh
did you
my gosh.
have any sort of thing like Read or how was that aspect compared to now you having Read during your interviews?
Yeah. In fact, I think I used to even think of maybe like, can I record this meeting? And I never did because I think it's illegal. And if we don't announce ourselves, and I thought, oh, but gosh, there's no way for me to capture all this information other than writing it down. And I think we've also had the thing of like, well, then if I lose that piece of paper, what is going to happen? And so much of the conversations that we have at the very beginning of the recruiting process, we're understanding, why potentially they're looking for a new role. What are some of the important things? Is it a commute? Is it salary? Is it the type of work? Is it the environment? Those really important pieces of information 100% affect how I'm going to go in and close that candidate. And so when we have so many candidates like running through our brain, it's really challenging to get to the very end and go like, okay, what did me and, John Smith, what did we talk about that whole time, right? And it's if I can go back and I can ask Search Copilot, when I talked with John, what were some of the important things that he talked about in the very beginning? And I'm going to make sure to weave those things in as we're closing that candidate, as we're in, the offer conversation. And so before it was a ton of like handwritten notes, and I would rely on myself, which is not always great for compensation, right? Like we want to make sure that we're asking the question about compensation needs, and that information is one of the most important things as we go to offer. And if we don't have expectations and we don't have detail around that and the context, I think we're not able to like really service it and actually sort of like work to find that right offer or that solution for the candidate. So oftentimes it was, which is not great.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Once again, same for me, like having meetings before read. I'm like, I don't know how I ever remembered anything that happened.
Yeah, and I'm like, now I very much rely on it. Like, I will never not use Read because once you really start like using it, it becomes such a superpower. And it's truly just like, I can't imagine now talking to a candidate where I'm like, okay, hold on, and writing something down. So, yeah, so thankful.
Yes, definitely. And I think like the big thing here is not only is it helping you, but like how does this make the candidate's experience better?
Yeah. So I've actually had candidates say this to me, right? Like, oh, like we're just able to have a conversation. And of course, it's when I'm saying like Reed is in this meeting and this is what it does for me. And really the candidate is feeling like they notice the transparency and the focus during our interviews. Interviewers love not having to write everything down and just being able to have that like genuine conversation. And I feel like I've heard it from candidates that they feel it, that they're like, oh, I'm actually like having a regular conversation. Which I think is, this is a big part of like your life, right? Like choosing a new career, it's, where you spend most of your time. And so if you can really feel like you're having a good conversation with someone who actually genuinely cares about that, I think is makes a huge difference.
Definitely. I agree. My interview process at Reed was great. So good job.
Love to hear that.
Um, and I feel like I would love to just talk about like quick best practices and tips. Like if you could give recruiters just like one tip for maximizing Read, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest tip is, mm, I can't choose. Writing my interview feedback just saves me hours and hours, like potentially even a day. But I think also the ability to, and I see this like in a question to like identifying gaps and like being able to say, here's the candidate interview, here is the job description. Like, what did we not talk about? And like that, let's say that's in my initial conversation there's something that I missed, right? Or like I didn't cover and we want to dig in. I am able to kind of like quickly find that out and then pass that along to the next interviewer, right? I'm like, oh, he didn't get to this, or oh, in fact, we didn't cover these topics. I can then add that to sort of those interview questions for the next person so that they're making sure that they cover that gap, or if they, if maybe the candidate brought up a yellow flag and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to pass that on to the next person so that they can dive in a little bit deeper and get more clarity around that.
I love that. Um, I know we want to get to a Q&A here in a minute and obviously our giveaway winner as well. So like any other top of mind things you would like to share about Read from your perspective?
No, I mean, I think that really covers it. And I think the thing that's from an internal perspective and working with my teammates who are super, super busy, and I know it's important for them to spend time recruiting and hiring, but the more that I can do to like pull some of that lift away from them, it just makes that quicker, and they're much more engaged to be part of those interviews, and they start to understand a little bit more about like, oh, okay, this is how Reed is using recruiting and how they can sort of incorporate it as well.
Definitely. I love that. Well, let's get to some questions. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I already see a few, so we can start with, does Reed offer stats or predictive trends around engagement, et cetera, like the likelihood of a candidate accepting an offer? So I think you kind of touched on this, but if you kind of want to go over how you use our sentiment and analytics a little bit again.
Yeah, so I had pulled up sort of like a sample, but I can't share that here. But I can essentially go in and I can say, when looking at this role, this job, can you pull out or bubble up the candidates that had the highest engagement scores, right? And maybe I'll start there because then I know that they're very interested in Reed. We want someone who wants to be here. And so if I can start at that engagement level, then I think that that just from what I know, it gives me a good place to start with people who are very active in the interview process.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Another question, is Read only for recruiting or are there other features included? Read is definitely not only for recruiting. This webinar was just to highlight how recruiters can use it as Read. Like I mentioned, I'm on the sales team and use Read every single day. It's really built for anyone who is in any types of meetings to help you out and kind of just automate what you're doing, help with productivity overall. We have other demos available on our YouTube that kind of go over full demos of the Read platform as well as other specific use cases. Our next demo we have coming up next month will also be, or our next webinar coming up next month will be a more high level demo of Read, especially highlighting our Search Copilot tool. So yeah, it's definitely for everyone. This specific conversation is just highlighting how recruiters can use it. This is a great question, Sierra. How can we use Read AI for in-person interviews?
Oh, yeah. So we have a Read AI iOS app, and I think, Megan, do you know if the Android app is out yet?
Not out yet, but coming very soon.
Yeah. So it's we want to capture that in-person interview feedback as well. So I always remind my interviewers to please record the in-person interview. So they just use their mobile app and it will record the meeting, go right into their read report sort of like list. And so you're able to, and that's key. And I do remind the interviewers before they go into the interview, like don't forget to do that because we want to just get that holistic view. And so reminding them to record those in-person meetings as well.
Yep, it's pretty simple. And if for some reason you don't have your phone available, what I've done before is just open my laptop to a Google Meet and add read to it and just turn off my camera and it still records on the side. So just another little tip, but the mobile app is definitely very useful and easy for those in-person interviews.
Yeah, and I've recorded many meetings out and about, like at a coffee shop or if I'm doing a visit. And it's incredibly helpful and also like really nice for the candidates to sort of see how it works as well.
Definitely. And it kind of leads into our next question, like, can I use this for cases where there are two or more people in the room and you want Reed to capture the discussion and differentiate who said what? So yes, you can. What Reed will do is it'll differentiate by the different speakers. So it's not going to identify, say you're in a conference room, it's not going to identify my voice as Megan, but I might be speaker one and Karin might be speaker two. And so in the transcript, it will differentiate by speaker. But the great thing about that is when you go into the transcript, you can identify and type who speaker one is, and then it applies it throughout the whole report. So yeah, once you identify, it's really easy to have the speakers' names in there, but it will differentiate who is saying what. Any other questions that we have, feel free. Can it work on a phone conversation? So right now it cannot work on a phone conversation. We are not able to record phone calls, but maybe on the roadmap somewhere it might come. But yeah, as of right now, we cannot record any phone conversations.
Yeah, and that person that asked the question, usually what I do, I mean, for the most part now, all of my meetings, I don't call the candidate anymore. I very much rely on having Reed be in my meetings. And so all of my interviews are just set up to just have Reed join all of my interviews. And then if you want, just like have, you can always like maybe put that in, like no need for video or whatever it may be, but just so that it's right there so that you know, if that's an option for you.
Definitely. And oh, our that's a great question, Catherine. Hoping to get this approved for her team, but need help with a business case. Are there any ways, like from your perspective, Karin, how she should be thinking about the ROI and business case in this scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the best way. I mean, the best way is just time and speed, time to fill. I think it candidate experience, but time to fill is usually right. It's the ROI that is the business case is how quickly can you move a candidate through the process and get them to start. And if there's a, and that's it's quite literally so accurate and so true. So I don't know if we've got metrics around that, but I think it's just speed and candidate experience for sure.
Awesome. I know we're almost at time here. Um, Feel free to, I'll drop my email in the chat if we have any other questions that pop up. And Anna, do we have a giveaway winner? Perfect. Sierra Layton, congratulations. I will follow up with you via email. Karin and I did drop our emails in the chat, so if feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We'll also have this recording available on our YouTube and available to share as well. But thank you again, everyone, for joining. Karin, thank you so much for joining me. You killed it on your first webinar. And we will have another one next month. So feel free, be on the lookout for that registration. Hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks.
Bye.